Hey, Sammy here. I'm not your typical job counselor. I work remote and I travel the world as I kickstart careers. This is raw, real, and on the road.
Hi, I'm Sammy, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. And I am super excited because I have Flick Hardingham, who, okay, if you don't know Flick, she is an amazing employee experience expert. And what that means is that she shows companies how to just like treasure their employees and make people never want to leave. I met Flick in Morocco, and instantly I was just like, this this woman is baller. Now, Flick can introduce herself way better than I can. She is also the founder of Habit, so I'm leaving things out because I just think she's so great, and it's hard to tell you what one thing first, but I will let Flick introduce herself. Take it
Thank you,
away.
Sammy. What an amazing introduction. As you mentioned, yes, hello. I am founder of Habit, which is an employee experience consultancy based in London. So we work with companies to supercharge their people power with a special interest in using design thinking to craft seamless, beautiful, delightful kind of HR processes and solutions and engagement tools to make company culture awesome. So as Sammy said, people love you from the get-go and they don't want to leave, because organizations thrive when people love what they do, and people thrive.
Yes, and that is something that as a career specialist where I help people, kind of determine what companies they want to work with, there is so much now that people really want. For those who might be a little bit unsure of the term, could you kind of talk about what employee is and how what things you go for to help companies improve their employee experience?
Absolutely, no problem. So what employee experiences is, it's very closely related to employee engagement and with hints of user experience. So it's basically seeing the employee as the user of the workplace and trying to make them have an awesome time throughout. So like, how are they experiencing, like, how are they feeling throughout their journey from work? So that's from the moment that they apply for a job to the moment of leaving. And it's trying to identify the key touch points or the magical moments during their journey of being in that workplace and making sure that they're all super awesome and aligned to your culture and values that is going to help the business to thrive and be successful. So there's different key pillars that I work on with my clients. If I talk you through a couple of case studies, it might help you shape an understanding of where employee experience really, really comes into play.
Awesome.
Yeah, useful? Okay.
Yes.
So at the moment, I'm working with a really amazing international members club who want to refine their recruiting and hiring and onboarding process. Now the situation here is, I think a lot of companies, and I've been through this myself, and I'm sure you have as well, Sammy, when you are interviewing for a job, often you're treated quite badly as a candidate. You might have poor communication, haphazard communication. Sometimes companies really make you feel that you need to be fighting to get the job and you'd be lucky to get the job. You might be put through lots of tasks. You might be given only a few hours notice to pull something out the bag. There might be lots of other candidates. Just low transparency and low mismatched expectations and poor communication. Your experience during that, your kind of like emotional attachment, if you like, or your impression of the company can be awesome, or it can be really, really low, depending on how they kind of manage what should be a fairly common sense, swift, easy, lovely process. So if you have a really appalling time during the hiring process, you might even decide not to take the job, or you might start looking elsewhere. In the worst scenario, you might actually start bad mouthing that company. And I've certainly heard it from my friends and clients that they've had a bad experience and they would tell other people not to go and work there simply on the basis of their recruitment strategy.
Yes, I've done that before as a career specialist. I'll tell people straight up what I have heard and what I've experienced. So you're totally right.
Yeah, so we're working to kind of refine that at the moment. And then it moves into onboarding. So, I've worked with clients where someone had started that day and the manager didn't even know they were arriving that day. They're not welcomed. They don't know where the toilet is. They don't know where the photocopier is. And you're suddenly like this new kid at school and you're stranded. And that's a key moment for your work, for your new job. That is like a magic moment where they can kind of make or break your relationship, which then translates to productivity, your desire to collaborate. And very key is what's known as discretionary effort. Now, discretionary effort is the time that you'll put in outside of what you kind of like said you would do for the job. So it's those people that will smile to every customer. It's the baggage handler who will check the last bag at the end of the shift properly. It's, do you know what I mean? It's those people that will stay the extra hours and do it because they love the company. And this is a very sensitive thing. And it's very subtle cues that can kind of make or break whether an employee will do that. So at the moment, I'm really interested in the kind of like the recruitment process and helping companies figure out what is their purpose and their values, how can they break that down into different behaviors, and then match it with candidates to properly hire. So they're getting the right bums on seats and making sure that those people have an awesome experience throughout.
And you know what, that is so important, because especially when you're a company, let's say in tech, and you're dealing with top talent and you want to really make the, flip the Pareto principle where you can have 80% of your people just rock stars. You really can't treat people like that and get away with it nowadays, because it's not just word of mouth, it's Glassdoor. So if you're like a high-paying software engineer, why would you go to the company that hasn't even considered employees enough to have an onboarding process? That is one thing that I think is amazing.
What you mentioned there about Glassdoor is really pertinent. Trend Watching have coined this term, which I love, called Glassbox brands. And we are in the era now of the Glassbox brands. So, like 10 years ago, companies operated within a black box. Stuff went on inside and people only knew what was presented to us in the form of marketing, really. But now with the rise of things like Glassdoor and social media, we know exactly what's going on in the company culture. And that will affect not only if you want to work there, but whether you want to buy that product as well. So it affects employees and users of the product. So a real key example of where it's gone horribly wrong would be like United Airlines, where social media showed staff pulling that guy off a plane, or Uber, where the CEO's being a bit of an asshole and everyone knows about it, and that affects their decisions to work there and also whether they want to use the product. Conversely, there's a lovely story of a CEO at HSBC in Taiwan who he had a female employee whose father refused to walk her down the aisle for her same-sex marriage. So the CEO of HSBC walked her down the aisle, and it went viral. And that kind of thing was amazing for boosting their company culture and showing that they're kind of like a nurturing environment. And I think especially now, we're really in the age of peer-to-peer marketing and influencing. And your decision to work somewhere will increasingly be based on what your friends say and what kind of like the global community at large says, not just what the company page tells you. So we're really in an age of companies can't just have a purpose statement on their wall and a few listed values. They have to really live and breathe those values. They have to let the employees know what their company purpose is and how they are contributing to that purpose, because people really want to feel connected to the bigger picture within a company and ideally know how that company is making the world a better place. And I've completely lost my thread.
No, actually, what I love about
the second point, values. So, I'm working with a client and one of their values is be extraordinary. And I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. But how the hell do I achieve that? So it's about working out, okay, what does be extraordinary practically look like? What kind of behaviors do you want to see? How can we build that into the hiring processes, into competencies, and into frameworks for career development and agile performance development, so people feel that they are achieving those and they are being extraordinary, rather than having this rather intimidating value hovering above you and you've got no idea how to practically reach it.
Yes, and those values can seem very ironic when it's very clear that there is no thought to what is the employee journey. You hear so much about the customer journey, but companies don't really think about the impression that they're making. And it's always a two-way street when it comes to interviewing, to onboarding, even to the exit interview. It's amazing how I've talked to people who are recruiters for companies, managers, and they have no idea why people are leaving their company. And they've never even bothered to ask.
I know, it's actually quite shocking, the number of companies that don't do exit interviews. They're really fruitful, and I wonder if people are nervous about doing them, and kind of rightly so, but there's so much to be gleaned from it. And I know at Facebook they do entry interviews, which is an awesome idea. So they basically sit down and say, like, you know, figure out with that new starter, what are your skills, what are your strengths, what kind of things do you want to be doing on the job? Because it might not just be their job that they're interested in, the kind of role they've signed up for. There might be other kind of like softer skills that they're interested in developing, like writing or speaking or innovation. And then that manager can build a job around those skills and strengths. And I know at Facebook, what they're trying to do is keep people and move them around rather than hire for a specific role. Hiring, obviously there's got to be skills and experiences that are ticked, but it's also about hiring awesome people and then keeping them. And if that means building and merging the job around them, then that's what they'll do.
Yes, because so many companies nowadays, I think some smart companies are realizing that they're losing so much institutional knowledge, and that it is such a time waste if you have like your new people where they have no idea where things are. Everybody's only been there for like a year or two, and if there is one person that does have some seniority so they understand things, that person is the de facto onboarder, so they're not even able to be as productive in their own role because they're too busy taking the new fish down to HR to meet Linda, because really they're supposed to get a specific type of form, but their new manager doesn't even know what it's supposed to be. And that is so
it's all quite messy and convoluted. So what I try to do, and you're exactly right on talking about the employee journey, because that's essentially what we're looking at with employee experience. So it's thinking about like, how do they feel? And I think as well, like in the workplace, a lot of HR practices and engagement practices can be additive. So we're adding more tech solutions. Well, you've got a mental health wellbeing app. You've got Slack. You've got Workspace. You've got loads of different channels for communication. You're getting emails from internal comms all the time, from HR. You've got other platforms for designing your work and project management tools. And suddenly it's a very crowded space. And what I'm really interested in is helping companies refine that and simplify it and make the employee experience kind of as easy and delightful as possible so they can get on with their work.
Oh, and that is so needed. And, one thing that I'd like to do is to switch gears just a little bit, because we've been talking a lot about what the company can do, but I know there are things that employees and also managers can do to kind of build their own employee experience. I've been a part of some great teams that, even though our like little inner team was fantastic, I knew that there might be chaos around me, but when I was in my team, it was great. So can you maybe talk about some things that just regular employees can do to improve the company experience?
Yeah, well, I think the first step with the employee and the individual is really understanding what job you want to do. So that's really from the beginning of your, hopefully, this should really be happening in education with children when they start thinking about careers, is what are your strengths, what are your values, and kind of using design thinking to think about like, in what way do you want to work? Like, for example, I know I need a lot of variety to stay stimulated, and I need to collaborate with lots of different types of people. So that means I can't actually go to one office every day, 5 days a week. So it's understanding what you need and kind of what makes you tick, and then finding the right company and the right role with the right kind of career progression opportunities for you. So I think that's the first stage, is like, don't just end up in a job. Don't get on a grad scheme accidentally and just roll on because it's easy to get promoted. Really think about it and set aside time to think about your career development. I met an awesome guy this week who has created his own career development framework and his own performance development reviews, and he's giving them to his manager because it's not happening at his workplace, and he's sharing with her in their informal catch-ups and just whenever he can what he wants to be doing. So I think the key thing for the employee is be social, communicate, and grow the balls to go and find out and be curious about what's going on in the organization. So once you found the organization that you love and you're in a role, understand figure out what makes you thrive and then work out how you can get there. Because I've seen time and time again, the way people get promoted and do well in organizations is through being a great person, being helpful, being collaborative, and just generally knowing people. So I would definitely suggest getting involved in any kind of like CSR initiatives or culture initiatives to really try and shape the culture of the organization as well. And if you feel that your manager or the experience isn't right for you, you need to take a really DIY approach. And it's all about self-leadership is a lovely term I heard today, where you're thinking about, you're thinking about your personal development, and that means that you're happy to receive feedback from everyone, from people below you, people above you, and you're taking that into account, and you're happy with negative, and you're reframing it as constructive feedback, and you're potentially happy with conflict as well, and you see all of this stuff as an opportunity to learn, and you're learning continuously, because I think those are the kinds of skills that people need in the future of work.
Yes, what I love about self-leadership is the fact that people really do need to know how to advocate for themselves, because yes, managers, studies have shown, are the number one reason that people leave companies. But a lot of times with managers, if they don't know how you want to be managed, what your communication style is, you have to, like you said, have some self-awareness, and you also have to, like you said, grow the cojones to just talk to El Jefe and be like, hey, this is the best way that I work. This is how we're going to really gel together. I've had friends who will send even emails about that, where even if you don't want to do a face-to-face, send them an email, let them know this is how you operate.
Yeah, and get an understanding. It's all about self-awareness. So be an adult. How do you operate? How do people in your team operate? And go and learn about like different working styles and gain empathy and understand how different people work, and therefore how you can adapt to work with different team members, and don't just assume people are in the wrong because they have a different style from you, because everyone has something to contribute and that's why they're there. So it's really about being flexible and agile companies because of bad management. And a really good friend of mine is going through this at the moment, where her manager is just micromanaging and being not interested in her career development at all. And there's a few key pillars for engaging that managers, I think, can look after. One is definitely motivation and recognition and gratitude. So that kind of like appreciation of people and recognizing when things have gone well, and also not having this culture of things are going well and that's the status quo, so you don't need to reward it or recognize it. Let's only talk about work when it's going bad. You need to recognize that maintaining the current pace that many of us work at is an awesome feat, and that should be congratulated and celebrated. And we don't just talk about performance when it's bad. So that's one key thing. Also helping your team know and understanding your team and what they want, and helping them spot opportunities for progression within the company, even if that means you might lose them, because it shows that you have their best interest at heart. So it's all about understanding how your team works, understanding their different working styles, and kind of tailoring the job to them, even if that does eventually mean losing them.
And a lot of times it's not like a employee will be gone forever. I've certainly worked with companies where they call them boomerangers. They go off, maybe they get some cool training somewhere else, and 2 years later they're back in the company. So there's always ways that you can continue those connections. One thing that I just wanted to add that I feel like is a big part of employee experience is also choosing your not just your own attitude, but who you're going to spend the most time with. If you're always spending time with maybe the more negative Nancys of the company, then yeah, you're probably going to have a more negative opinion of what they're doing and where they're going.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this brings up another key point for managers. Managers need to be a really good role model, and that means you don't bitch around the water cooler. You don't speculate with people about salaries. You're showing them best practice, and I've seen it time again. A team will model your behavior. If as a manager you're behaving poorly and you're disrespecting your peers, your team will do the same. Just like children copy teachers, it's the same. So I think who should you be hanging around with the organization? Definitely positive people that try and avoid negative Nancys. But I would say just hang out with everyone. Be curious. Can you have a coffee with a different person in the organization every week or every 2 weeks and learn about what's going on and just develop your curiosity? Because if you're feeding that, it'll grow, you'll become more creative, and opportunities will start presenting themselves to you.
Yes, that is so true. It's the power of your network, which is something that even if you're employed, you should always be cultivating, because your company could have a brilliant employee experience, but layoffs, downsizes, even, acquisitions, whatever can happen. A startup can shut down, but your network you'll always have. And if you leave a company with a positive reputation, that is something that means that people will actually want to recommend you and refer you, which is not a given. So it's fantastic that you've given me and the listeners so much just ideas about the new ways that people are working and the new ways that companies are trying to increase the employee experience, especially if they work with someone like you, who I feel like there should be a you in every company. It's almost like, HR or something like that. You're really adding a lot to companies, especially in tech. And Flick, we're getting towards the end of the interview, but I really want to make sure that people who are listening can find out what's going on with Habit, how they can work with you if they are a manager, they are a founder, and just give us a little bit of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I work with companies in really different ways. Three of my key propositions would be employee experience consultancy, so helping you develop these kind of processes and behaviors and mindset and culture so that your employees thrive. A second would be radical collaboration, which is all about increasing creative and innovation capability and really building resilient connections within the company. And that can be a one-day workshop or a program or consultancy again. And then the third kind of like sample program would be Leading for Innovation, which is something I actually ran with Deliveroo, the really rapidly growing tech company that's global now and delivering fabulous food everywhere, including to my house tonight. And Leading for Innovation is all about how can you create the right culture and the right team to help them thrive and therefore innovate through different processes. So they're my key sample programs. The best place to find me is because I just live and breathe employee experience. My main driver for doing this work is I think too many people aren't fulfilling their potential, and the workplace can do so much to help that, and it's criminal if it's not happening. So I'm interested in any kind of aspect of employee experience, from the hiring to the firing, really. And the best place to find me is wearehabit.com. And I'm building at the moment, so that's just a landing page right now, but it has all my contact details on there, and you can reach out to me, and I'm very happy to discuss anything around employee experience, future of work, and use of design thinking for HR.
Awesome. Thank you, Flick. Thank you for listening. This is Sammy with the Career Kickstart Show.
Find something cool at cool.careerkickstartacademy.com.